Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Bruce Starr. I have been on a 40-year self-study on several different philosophies on life. And my wife is in here, so I might have to clean up how I state this. But it was at first to learn how to pick up chicks. Sorry. I had to learn how to understand men and women, okay? So even back then, it was a motivation. It's whatever it takes to get you started on a spiritual path, whatever it is, okay? So if you look at this paper, we're going to talk about something that's kind of difficult. And my wife says, keep it light. Okay, I would be glad to keep it light, but the subject matter is a little bit challenging, okay? In the last 10,000 years, things were done a certain way. Men were a certain way for the most part, women were a certain way. And in the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, I don't know if it's 40, but in the last 30 years, things have changed, okay? Now, I need your participation in this, because this is very, very important. Yesterday, there was a lot of speakers. Who was here yesterday? Okay. If you saw any of the speakers yesterday, it seems like the topic of conversation is we either live in the third dimension or we live in the fifth dimension. So does anybody hear any information about this at all? Okay, so the third dimension is kind of where we are when we're angry, bitter, comparing, disappointed, watching the news every day, look miserable, discontented, not in a relationship, single, blaming men, blaming women. And that's the third dimension. And what they really did yesterday, which was really cool, is if you move over a little bit, over here is like fifth dimensional living. And fifth dimensional living is kind of living in a more of a spirited sense, not quite so attached to the body. Living in a calmer world, living in a more peaceful world. So it was really wonderful what I learned yesterday. And so it's interesting that the talk I'm going to give today, for this to be effective and for this to make a difference, I'm going to need you to make a shift from third dimensional, where we blame, separate, claim our bodies, you're a man, I'm a woman, I'm a man, you're a woman, to a higher fifth dimensional level where we kind of look at this world in a higher sense, in a more spirited sense. So, I want to ask you to do something. Since this is about masculinity and femininity in relationships, what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you're going to take this in and learn from it, I'm going to ask you, would you close your eyes just for a minute for me? You don't have to if you don't trust me. But if you would, I want you to close your eyes just for a minute. I promise you'll be out of it in less than a minute. And I want you to take a more neutral body. If you're a woman, climb out of that body for the next half hour or so. If you're a man, climb out of that body. See if you can actually feel yourself do that. And don't be that man just for the next half hour or so. Don't be that woman, but be kind of a neutral entity, a fifth dimensional entity, where you will be more open to understanding this information that I'm about to talk about. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And by the way, I've had many incredible teachers and masters. Studied the Course in Miracles with Marianne Williamson. She was my teacher way back when in Manhattan. And I actually had a little bit of something to do with the writing of the book, Return to Love, which if I died today, I know that was one of the most successful, best read books ever and helpful books ever on relationships. And I didn't write it with her, but I got it started with her. And so another teacher of mine is Dr. Pat Allen. Does anybody at all ever hear of Dr. Pat Allen? It's a lady. She's about 85 years old now. Who has ever seen The Millionaire Matchmaker on TV? Okay? So if this is going to be kind of tough because you haven't seen it, but every once in a while, when Patty Stanger, the millionaire matchmaker, would have a really tough case with one of her millionaires, she would invite this little old 80-year-old lady to come in and really give this millionaire who was giving her a tough time the business until that person kind of smartened up, because if you're not going to win against this little old 80-year-old lady. She is really tough and she's really smart. To give you an idea, oh my God, his arms are crossed and I'm having a tough time with him already. Okay, that's better. I'll take that. Tell you how tough this lady was. I lived in Los Angeles for a while. This lady would come to a movie theater in Santa Monica. And who would be in her audience? She would fill this movie theater on a Monday night. It was closed, but she would fill it on a Monday night with hundreds and hundreds of people from the entertainment industry. Actors, actresses, you recognize them. TV producers, directors, casting directors, heads of studios. Why were they there? Because they bought a concept that many of our parents gave to us. I'd be curious to see if you heard this also. When you were younger, to get you away from that first love, 15, 16, 17 years old, to prevent you from staying in love and falling in love with this 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old, your parents said to you, if you were a man, listen, go to college, get your degree, get a great job, and you'll be able to have anybody you want. Anybody ever hear that when they were younger?
Sure.
Women, to get you off the scent of that first love, were you told that if you go to college and take care of yourself and don't make any bad mistakes, that you will be able to meet a doctor or a lawyer and get married and live happily ever after? How did that work out? Not too well for a lot of people. And as we get older and older and older, the genuineness of the relationships that we have become more complicated, don't they? Now, if there wasn't even a excuse me. If there wasn't even this problem with masculine and feminine energies, we'd be in a pickle anyway, right? Because the statistics say, how many people are in the world right now? Like 6 or 7 billion or something like that? How many people in the United, more?
Yeah, about 8 billion.
8 billion now. Oh, no wonder why they're trying to cut us down. So how many people in the United States? Is it something like
350 million.
350 million? The statistics say that 50% of us are what? Single. Guess what? Another 25% of us are in relationships that we're not very happy in. That's a few people out there, not in love. You two guys, you go against the grain right there. But aren't they sweet looking? Aren't they unbelievable? I love that. Okay, so the rest of a lot of people are out there roughing it. Now, add this feminine and masculine thing that's come up in the last 20 or 30 years. Remember, you're not women, you're not men for the rest of this period, right? Raise your hand. I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, I'm neutral. I'm neutral, just for this. Because if I say things, I don't want to keep saying, it's not a stereotype, I don't want to keep saying that. Yeah. By the way, this is Dr. Pat Allen's work that she presented every week in front of 300 TV and movie people who bought the ticket, that if they get famous, They can have anybody they want. They get rich, they can have anybody they want. And that movie theater was filled with people that didn't go well with. They got to be producers, they got to be actresses, they got to be directors, and they were miserable. Because that's not the way love works. Our parents gave us the wrong information. God love them. They're all great people. They wanted to save us from being in love when we were 16, 17, 18 years old. Who was in love when they were 15, 16, 17, 18 years old? You know, half the, not you. Like, you can close your arms again, that's all right. But for those of us that were you? Yeah.
I'm still with them.
Oh, wow, congratulations, great. Good stories in here, great. So, for those of us that were in love, anything more wonderful than that? By the way, when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, there's no baggage, no luggage, you're not carrying anything around, you're not full of negativity, you're not full of all this stuff that fills your head with things. Things could be the greatest in the whole world, but if you're filling your head with, what did he do? Is he going to be the same thing? Is he going to be able to support me, send my kids to college? Is the sex going to be as good as it was? Is she going to change her mind? Is he going to change her mind? When you're in a relationship like that, things don't flow really well in a lot of different ways. If you're thinking too much, things aren't flowing when they need to flow. Those of us that have had sex before know what I'm talking about. Things need to be clear. Things need to be clean. Things need to be
Present.
You need to be present. Because if you're in the past, by the way, is there any such thing as a past?
No.
Any such thing as a past? That's a dangerous place for it to be. Is there any such thing as the future?
No.
Can you put your finger on it?
No.
So when you're in a relationship, you got to stay in the present moment as much as you can. If you're busy comparing and is he going to do this? Are they going to do that? Is the future? So let me get back to this because this is really, really important. So what I'm going to talk to you about is the information that she shared with these movie stars and directors, which is good for everyone. But to be seeing this out in Hollywood, California, to such powerful people, and for her to bring people up on the stage and really, just for lack of better words, straighten them out, was an incredible sight to see as many weeks as I could go and see it. Because these people, no one is more in their ego than a very powerful and rich producer, director, and actor and actress who was alone and lonely. Boy, they were in a really tough position. So,